What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today is another perfect day for a jungle video, and in this one we're going to talk about jungle champions in what category they belong into. As you know, jungle is one of the hardest roles to get into, not only because it's so different from laning, but the mental abuse that you take every game from some donkeys that play the game can sometimes be a bit too much. One thing that helps against this is muting everyone, of course, but an actual great tip is to always play something that you enjoy, and to play something within a playstyle that you enjoy. We have different personalities, and with that comes different perspectives and different playstyles, and that is what makes the game fun and unique. So today I have prepared a list where I group all the champions within a certain category, and I talk about each category and how those champions typically play the game. Let's get into it. Now I want to preface this by saying that every list is subjective. The tier list from S to D tier, the tier list that your favorite streamer makes every month, every list is subjective. And people's opinions change based on what they play and what they enjoy. This is not like a facts list. It's mostly a list of, hey, I enjoy this type of champion, I want to play something else, what fits, what is similar to my favorite champion that I can pick up. So have that in mind as you watch the video. To start off, we have the category of better in main role, and these are for champions that Riot have given jungle buffs to. These champions are viable in the jungle and can be played in the jungle, but they are way better in their main role. Playing them in the jungle removes the strength they have in normal lanes. The number one rule of the jungle is to play efficiently, and these champions are not very good at that. I've made some short points about why they are placed here. Let's take a look. So here we have them. And let's bring this little notepad into the screen, and we have all the champions here and some small points. Darius, strength is in bullying lanes. This strength is lost in the jungle because you're not laning versus anyone. Camille, she can jungle and can accelerate her lead, tough clear early game, and can be invaded very easily. Cho'Gath is better suited as a lane bully, is too slow in the jungle. Mundo, same as Cho'Gath. Gwen actually wins the game after 2 items, can be invaded early, safer. She's safe for top lane, but if she reaches like 2 items in the jungle, she can completely take over that game. Urgot is too slow in the early game, tough clear, can be invaded easily. Kiana, same as Camille. Malphite is mostly played as an AP character in the jungle, falls off hard. His entire combo is flashable by a carry, and then you're just playing AP Malphite without ultimate, and you're fucking useless. Nautilus has great ganks but very low clear speed. Rammus does his job way better. Olaf can't even jungle anymore, does not even have recorded games for jungle in 13.20. If you told me this 3 years ago, I would spit in your face, because Olaf was such a good jungler, and now he can't even be played as a jungler. Set is same as Darius, it's a bully in lane, lost in the jungle. He has great ganks but he's too slow. Brand is a great choice for an AP jungler, but he lacks utility compared to others like Lilia. Shen, he can jungle, but his early game is his strongest, and that is lost in the jungle. Great ganks, great ultimate. Sion is the same as Mundo and Cho'Gath, needs to be a lane bully. Jax is like Gwen, but he scales way better in the top lane. He's underleveled as a jungler and would lose 1v1s if he ever got into a 1v1 against a top laner like, say, Tryndamere Renekton that has higher levels than him. And Pantheon, not the best clear, good ganks, great global, but top and mid Pantheon gets way more gold and XP. These are the champions that are in the better in main role category. You can play these champions, they are viable, but they are not as good as quote normal junglers. So yeah, they are great as a one-off, but maybe not as a main. Next up we have the really good if you one-trick them category. These are champions that are very difficult to play to the fullest and not champions that anyone can first time and perform on. Champions in this bracket need between 50 to 100 games before you even scratch the surface, but they are extremely rewarding. You typically see Smurfs stomp games on these champions, and let's take a look at them and some key points. So here you have the one-trick pony champions, and let's bring up the key points. And we start off with Shaco. Shaco has a very unique playstyle and is very powerful, but a lot of his power budget comes from actually being experienced on him. You can't just first time Shaco and be decent on him, he takes time to learn, but playing him to the fullest is very rewarding. He's one of the most annoying characters in game and is really good at just tilting enemy opponents and basically making them lose the game because of how frustrated they are. Next up you have Rengar. He's the AD carry's worst nightmare. Great early game, great mid game, decent late game. Falls off hard if he doesn't snowball. Great Rengars kill the target and escapes. Bad Rengars trade kills. You will often find yourself with a huge lead on Rengar, but if you give that shutdown away, you're basically shooting yourself in the foot because they will get tanky, they will get more levels, and you will be outscaled. So it's very important to be a really good Rengar if you want to perform on him. Next up we have Nidalee. She can be played as an invader, can be played as a power farmer, scales decently, transitions from carry to support in the mid to late game. Her E not only heals people, but it gives them more attack speed. She has a great poke, she has great objective control, especially if they are the team doing the objective and you want to like poke them out by just chucking spears at them. Nidalee is really good at that. And then you have Kindred. A great early game on Kindred means you need to lack hands to lose the game. Once you get 2-3 items, nobody can really deal with your DPS and utility. And Evelynn is similar to Rengar but an AP variant of him, except Evelynn doesn't really fall off until the extreme late game when everyone is grouped and she has difficulties finding a kill. Early game can be tough against good junglers, but once you scale into your first item, you start to take over the game. And then you have the champions that are great as counter picks to certain champions or team comps. These champions are viable to play as you like, but they are sometimes very good to pick to shut someone down and make their life a living hell. And let's take a look at them. So here they are, and now let's bring up the points. We start off with Rammus. Great against auto-attack based melee champions like Tryndamere, Master Yi, and even Graves, even though he's ranged, but he has very short range. Really powerful ganks, but a very slow farmer. Taunt can sometimes impose a QSS tax on enemy carries. QSS tax means they have to spend 1300 gold in order to get out of your taunt, otherwise they die. That 1300 gold spent on QSS is not spent on damage, and hence they fall behind if they have to pay the QSS tax. Vi is great at shutting down individual champions in fights, especially if they're playing a protect the carry comp like Lulu Kog'Maw or whatever. Great in teamfights, great in skirmishes, great damage, and surprisingly durable with the shields that she gets. And then you have Trundle. She is a tank's worst nightmare because his ult steals away stats, and it makes tanks a bit squishier. Destroys tanks like Sejuani, Alistar, Zac. Great into low damage tanky comps with one carry because he can ult a tank and then run down the carry and nobody can touch him. Bel'Veth is honestly too new for me to place anywhere else. I find her really good against melee champions because they can't really deal with her damage and mobility, but she sucks versus ranged champions that can just outpoke her and kite her. I feel like in a year's time we would have a better understanding of where Bel'Veth is, and especially if they rework her, because she's not the greatest. She's received some pretty huge nerfs, and I don't really feel like you can consistently pick her. And then we have Skarner. He's the same as Rammus, but he clears faster, plus have great ganks. Also imposes a QSS tax on carries because of his ultimate, and he scales better into the game. He has great objective controls because of his spires near Baron and Dragon. Warwick is great into tanks and low damage team comps. that let him just out-sustain their damage. He's great for early objectives like Dragon, but he lacks damage later. He's a bit similar to Briar in that sense that he can be kited later on. And then Talon, nobody can really match Talon's mobility in the jungle except for maybe Kayn. But Talon comes online way earlier than Kayn. He's very good against weak early game junglers and you can perma-invade them and get out very fast with your E. And now we get to the decent early game but falls off category. These champions are very good in the early game and wants to look for ganks, 1v1s, 2v2s, and they usually win. All of them are really good at early tower dives and they can secure early game leads and snowball hard. They don't actually fall off if you can close out the game, but if you go past 25 minutes and you're not really doing a good enough job, other champions will outscale you and they start to become more utility and frontline / pick champions. And here are they and some key points about them. So here we go. We have Lee Sin, one of the most popular champions in the game, very rewarding if you like mechanical champions, lots of combos to learn and very useful to kill carries in teamfights. A bad Lee Sin is always noticeable and will lose the game, but a good Lee Sin is a nightmare to deal with. And then we have Xin Zhao. He's a mix of Lee Sin, Rek'Sai and Samira. Xin is probably the strongest level 3 champion in the jungle and wants to find early fights. If he gets a lead and stays ahead, you're not going to have an easy time dealing with him. He's great into ranged characters because his ultimate can remove projectiles from coming in at him, especially as he's challenging a target, but later on he falls off in teamfights. Rek'Sai is the same as Xin Zhao but can find ganks from unusual angles and gain leads from out of nowhere. Great counter to engage champions like Lee Sin because of the knock-up in his passive. And then we have Elise. Elise scales decently as a carry, great early ganks and tower dives with her E. She's great at controlling the jungle objectives thanks to her damage and pick potential, and she is really good at roaming into the enemy jungle with the support and warding and clearing wards, because one cocoon landing is a kill in most cases. And now to the biggest category that fits most jungle champions, the perfect for teamfights group. Jungle is so much about objective control and nobody controls objectives better than these champions. Here you can find engage, disengage, stuns, roots, shields, AoE damage, great ganks for early game, a great amount of peel for your carries and insane tankiness. And they all deal a decent amount of damage themselves. Most of the champions play the same ways, so there's no point in talking about them individually. The very few that are worth covering are... So here we have the champions and some talking points about them. I should put it like here so you can see the champions. Okay, Morgana has been getting buffs for quite a while for the jungle. She has great clear and great ganks. She's a powerful team fighter and she's a great peeler later on for the carries. The difference between Morgana and say Brand jungle is that Morgana simply has more utility and she still packs a punch. And then you have Talia. She's great into team combos with flying champions like Akali, Yone, Yasuo, etc. And her ultimate can completely zone a team off of entering a fight, especially around Baron. Shyvana is a weird one because she can go AP, AD or tank. She scales so good off of killing dragons, and AP Shyvana can pop squishes with one dragon form E, and she's really hard to play against as a carry that doesn't really have the goal to invest into resistances and HP. Even if they buy things like Hex Drinker, one E is still enough to not only pop the Hex Drinker but leave them low enough so that they can't enter the fight. And then you have Rumble. Should probably be in the better as a main role category, but he has great clears, he's decent ganks and godlike objective control because of his ultimate. And then you have Wukong, that is the same as Rumble. Next up we probably have the most popular, the will carry games with the gold category. And these are champions that completely take over the game once they have a decent amount of gold in their pockets. Damage output is great, carry potential is great, and if they get ahead early there's no coming back for the enemy team unless they have a better team comp. The main issue for all of these champions are heavy CC comps with champions like Renekton, Leona, Nautilus. There's no need to cover them individually as they are very easy to play and very rewarding after 30 to 50 games. The only one of these champions that are in this category, as you can see right now, that I feel is worth covering is probably Hecarim. And that is because he has different builds depending on what is needed. He can go bruiser, he can go lethality, he can go full AD or tank, and has an easy time diving backlines. Probably the easiest champions to carry with from the jungle, especially once ahead. And now you have the great overall category. These are champions that you can pick every game and perform well on. They are versatile, they fit all comps, and they have the potential to carry games or take a back seat and support the carries instead. They can go full damage, they can go tanky, they can go in between, they can engage, they can peel, and they all scale decently well into the game. Let's take a look at some key points about them. We have Jarvan. Great early game, great mid game, scales so good with Gourd Drinker and Shojin combo. Basically playing Earth mode in ranked because the ability haste is so high that you basically can EQ all the time. Damage falls off later, but still a great engaged champion and someone that takes attention in teamfights. And then you have Nocturne, who's probably the best 1v1 jungler in the game, tied with Xin Zhao. Fear is very powerful and the spell shield is very useful. His ultimate lets you pick off greedy carries in a side lane, and the Stride Breaker build is the best by far because they can't get away from you. And then you have Diana, great clear, great damage, great all-in engage. If you're not afraid of Diana when she's in your game, something is wrong with you, because she's a very powerful champion. She has one of the fastest clears in the game, and she is so good at just picking people off and deleting them off the map that you have to respect her. And then you have Lilia. Nobody can control a team fight better than Lilia. Hitting a Q into a 5-man sleep is such a dopamine releaser, and she can win team fights by herself. Great and fast jungle clears and great invades. And then we have Briar. She's similar to Bel'Veth as she's so new that I don't really know how to place her, but playing against her, I basically view her as a Nasus that can engage team fights from across the map. As in, she's tanky, she deals a lot of damage, she heals for a lot, she wins most 1v1s, but she shares the same weakness as Nasus later, which is being kited. Still a great pick overall. And then we have Ivern. He's very unusual. He's best played with a duo Q partner on a big carry, or if you just have good trust in your team to carry you. Basically a jungle support that adds a lot of shield value to the team. Daisy, his ultimate, can be considered a 6th member of the team and is very annoying to deal with for the enemy team, especially since she cannot be smited anymore. And then you have Gragas. He's the same as Jarvan but an AP variant of him. Great engage, great disengage, can go full AP or bruiser, great at creating chaos in a team fight and grabbing attention, or just removing someone from the fight. And then we have Kayn, who is probably the most controversial. I feel that Red Kayn is better in 99% of situations, as he's great at dealing with melee champions and rage champions alike. He heals for a lot in teamfights and he can engage or peel for his team, depending on what's needed. Blue Kayn is great if you're a really good Kayn player and they have immobile carries on the enemy team, as they can't outrun you or survive your damage. He's a tough early game if you're unexperienced. I feel like most Kayn players go the wrong form a lot of times, and that's basically why they lose. The champion is so good. If their player base was a bit better at him, he would probably see more nerfs coming his way. And that leaves us with the top. Now these are not the best champions, they're not better than everyone else. This is called the highest return on investment category, meaning that these are champions with insane carry potential for every game, and the more you play them, the better they get. Nobody can match them for jungle clear speed, nobody can match their map control, and they are just so rewarding to master because you will become untouchable. And here they are. We have Graves, we have Karthus, and we have Fiddlesticks, and here are some points about them. Graves is one of the fastest clearers in the game, one of the best invaders and counter junglers, great damage and great objective pressure. Can only be outpaced in the jungle by Karthus, but beats Karthus in a straight up 1v1 fight. One of the best champions to climb with. He lacks utility, but he makes up for it in damage and setting the enemy jungler behind. A bad Graves player is pretty useless. A great Graves player makes the game unplayable for the enemy team. Then we have Karthus. He's a personal favorite of mine and probably why he is up here. Many people might have different opinions. but it's pretty clear that Karthus has the fastest clear in the game by far. He can clear the first 6 camps by 3 minutes flat and deals insane amount of damage, especially with his Q that deals double damage if the target is solo. He can gank fine, but is better used to power farm in the jungle, and pressing R every time a kill is guaranteed. Always look to steal kills on Karthus because you scale like a monster and your team doesn't really matter that much. Can later press R before a fight and chunk everyone down to 40% HP before the fights even begin, and that way you gain control of every objective. He's easily one of the best junglers in the entire game. And lastly we have Fiddlesticks. Fiddlesticks is somewhat unpopular, I don't know why. He has a great clear, he stays healthy in the jungle, but his power comes from finding these angles to ult from. Nobody respects the Fiddlesticks ult. Teams will walk up to unwarded territory, and because you ult from the fog of war you will always fear once you land because of your passive. And the silence and the slow and the insane amount of damage can make you delete teams all by yourself. He has a great synergy with items like Zhonya's and Proto Belt I think it's called, or Rocket Belt, and he is a mid to late game monster. Always make sure to ult in a fight that you can win, don't waste your ult. And that's about it. I don't think I missed anyone, maybe Zed Jungle, but he's currently the worst in the game in Emerald Plus and should probably be in the better in main role category. Again, this is not a list that says that Jarvan is a better jungler than Shaco or Karthus carries better than Kindred. It's just a list that ranks champions into certain playstyles and makes it easier for people to expand their champion pool but still play the same style. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Would you change anything in the list? I'm interested to see your opinions. But this has been it for this video. Sorry for making it kinda long, but you know, it is what it is. Thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.